What's up, everybody? Jake, thanks for having me. I'm Colin, at Colin McDees on Twitter, or Colin M on Farcaster. Uh, really excited to be on the podcast today and just chat about what I've done in the crypto space, and then kind of go into Warp Slot, which is the most recent thing that I launched a couple of months ago on Farcaster. So it's kind of a quick background on myself. I'm originally from Chicago, but I've lived in a bunch of different cities over the course of I'm 25. So over the last 25 years, I lived in San Diego, Dallas, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York. Um, Mostly early days because my dad's job would kind of take him around to different cities across the nation. He's in media, so he's works at basically like different news media stations all over the country. And so that his job kind of had moved us around, which in the moment growing up was always a really sad thing, moving cities. But I think now looking back on it, I'm very grateful that we did move because I've had a ton of different perspectives and seen all sorts of different walks of life. So yeah, originally I do still say Chicago though, but I've always been very interested in, I guess for lack of a better word, the unknown or frontier technology. So all the way back in freshman year of high school, I was giving TED Talks on black holes and string theory and how reality isn't quite what it seems. So I was definitely filled with a lot of that existential dread as an early teenager, but that did lead me to exploring a lot of this like frontier technology. So I ended up going to, I guess, frontier tech and like philosophy. I traveled to Thailand in high school as well. I lived in a Buddhist monastery for a couple of weeks. And that really kind of led me to want to study philosophy in college, but wasn't the most practical thing. So the next closest like frontier tech for me was the brain. So I studied cognitive science, data science, and I actually was able to graduate with a minor in blockchain technology. So I actually met my co-founder for Warp Slot in a Bitcoin class that I took for a semester, I think senior year of college. So I've been out of school now for like 3-4 years, but in college was really when I got into crypto and NFTs. Bought Bitcoin way back in 2016, but lost all my money, sold it, didn't really have too much interest in it beyond just, oh, cool, Bitcoin. But then 2020 rolls around and I discovered NFTs and dove really, really deep into it as both a collector and a creator. I teamed up with a buddy of mine who's a fine artist, really, really talented guy. He now works in high fashion. We started an NFT project called Tweak Labs with a kind of a whole world building piece around it where we created these 100 unique characters. And then from that, we did a generative project. A lot of fashion was involved with that. So we did a lot of clothing, a lot of in-person gallery events. And then just on my side of that project, I kind of got to explore a lot of really cool tech. So we built custom subdomains that are attached to your NFTs, our own marketplace for the NFTs, a whole bunch of just interesting things. And that kind of became like the testing grounds for a lot of the ideas that I've ended up building in the last couple of years. So that was started in like senior year of college, 2021, 2020. And then from there, graduated school, went into the whole startup world, worked on 2 or 3 different NFT projects that had varying levels of success, really cool projects. One was digitizing the world's largest private collection of arms and armor. So literally like swords, axes, helmets, all this stuff from ancient times. We were taking really high res 3D pictures of them and minting them as NFTs to kind of preserve this private collection in a new, unique way. So always been really interested in like starting, launching, and building my own products or projects. But then 2022 or 2023, crypto wasn't going so well, it wasn't too hot. So I actually ended up getting a full-time role that I'm still at now. I work at Red Bull full-time as my 9 to 5. I build apps for the marketing team. So all of our applications are internal, and essentially our clients or our stakeholders are people within the business. So we'll go to someone on culture marketing, which is all of the things that Red Bull does around dance or music, and they'll have a need or something's not very efficient or they're using an old Excel sheet, and my team's job is to actually go out and then build an application for them and improve their workflows. So I've learned a lot on the corporate side and kind of the brand side and what it takes to really build a worldwide brand like Red Bull. I think they're one of the best to ever do it. So I've been using all of my learnings here to then propel all the projects that I work on the side in crypto and AI forward a lot more. And then I guess that brings me now to Farcaster and how I got my start here. So I actually, a year ago, around this time last year when Frames V1 launched, my current partner for WarpSlot, Chris Flatham, super talented developer, we built something called Warp Shop. So we've stuck with the Warp naming conventions, but we built something called Warp Shop that was like the earliest version of porting your Shopify store into a frame. So we used Coinbase Commerce and Shopify to. The site is still up. You can go check it out. It's just still only Frames V1, so you can still make a store, but it's going to be a bit dated. Essentially, you do exactly what you would do with Shopify. You go in, add your products from Shopify, create this frame, and then they're listed for anyone to go out and buy. That was very limited by Frames V1, and Farcaster was not as big as it is now. Frames really had this big pop-off moment. So Warp Shop did really great. We had a lot of people using it. And then as kind of Frames hype died down, we stopped working on that and then shifted focus to other projects, other apps. And with these new mini apps that launched, we actually built Warp Slot, which is the current app that I'm working on. We built that in a Frame V1 originally. So it was just a bunch of GIFs because you couldn't really tap the screen like an app. So you had one button, you just press spin, and then we show a GIF of the spin, the GIF stops, and you figure out if you won or not. Very, very simple, but was still the same idea was still there. And then once they launched mini apps, like, oh shit, we can actually really, really build this into a full-blown application. So I think a couple weeks after the mini apps launched, we then put out Warp Slot, which is a meme coin dispenser, as we like to call it. You can go on, you spin for free 5 times a day, and you win any random assortment of coins on Base. And we have, I think we're now at like 1.5 million spins, 55,000 users. We average around 40,000 spins every day. So if everyone gets 5 spins, it's around 8,000 daily active users, a little bit more. Not everyone's using all 5 every day. But it's been great. It's really cool to see the growth of this app and how much people actually resonate with not just like the degen meme coin gambling side, but also the distribution, advertising, and marketing side of the project. So that's kind of my long-winded intro. Sorry if that was a little bit long.
No, it's perfect. It is perfect. I appreciate the story. It's great to have all the context, and I'll probably save my questions around black holes and all that for another conversation because I know we've got about 45 minutes here. But sounds really interesting, and obviously you've been into big ideas for a long time. I'll just jump right into Warp Slot because it's where we left off and sort of easy just to get right into it, and maybe we'll have some time for some other stuff at the end. But with the numbers that you just ended on, it's pretty wild. It's over 1 million spins, you said, and thousands of people every day using mostly all 5 of their spins, or most people using all 5 of their spins. And it's just a lot of people. It's a lot of like clicking. And I've come to appreciate, since starting to build some of my more of my own stuff over the last year or two, just how hard it is actually to get a large number of people to, make a large number of clicks every day. And so I don't know, like obviously with the V1 frame was quite limited. I hadn't come across Warp Slot at that time, only more recently with the V2/Mini app.
Yeah, we actually never launched it. We never launched it. We had a partner company that we were doing it with, and then they kind of didn't want to do it anymore, I guess. And so we were like, all right, we're just gonna rebuild it for ourselves. So we actually never launched it.
Right. So that's makes sense that I didn't come across it then. But Warp Slot, as we know it now, I don't know if it was like the day that it launched or something, but it was like very, very quickly. It felt like it made a splash immediately with the initial coins that you guys included, and very quickly I was well aware of it and using it and everything like that. And then shortly after, you were nice enough to put QR on the slot. I think we've still got some QR coins in there for people to win out, which is nice. But yeah, so it's sort of like an immediate success in a lot of ways, and maybe more impressively than that, the persistence of it, that people are, like you said, every day, thousands of people, 5 spins per, and it makes sense. I mean, to some extent, you spin, it's fun, and it's free money. But what I was initially surprised with was like, it's really a very small amount of money, and for people to like actually take the time to go and action, the spins every day, it sort of opened my mind to the possibility that maybe the amount almost doesn't matter in a way. So I'm curious, like, there's the amount of money that you've decided to give per win. There's the coins that you decided to start with and have decided to add since then. There's the number of spins per day being 5. I've always been interested in, like, well, not always, but in recent years, I've become interested in this concept of like sort of, I think Wordle was sort of like the first thing where it's like, okay, here's this game that you play once a day, and now I know New York Times has like sort of a suite of these games that a lot of people can't seem to get enough of. And sort of the daily ritual of like a simple game that actually constrains your ability to play lots of rounds in an effort to sort of like keep you coming back every day for just the 1 round, or in Warp Slot's case, just the 5 rounds. So I'm curious just sort of to get like a overall perspective on some of the, I guess, design decisions, if you will, around like, amount of money, number of plays per day, number of coins to start with, which coins to start with. You don't have to go through all these things. Obviously, it's, be like a 7-part question, but any of them that sort of resonate as worth talking about, or maybe some of the ones that were more obvious decisions, or some of the ones that were more difficult decisions, just to sort of like better understand how you thought about the initial version of the game, which obviously struck a chord and continues to strike a chord.
Yeah. So on the initial coins that we included, the idea kind of was, we decided this like before we launched, but we wanted to keep it as sort of a premier experience, or a really nice high-end experience. So we purposefully started with only, I think we had 4 coins: Hire, MFer, Degen, and Clanker. Those coins specifically because I feel like everyone in Farcaster owns them, knows them. They're very prominent in the ecosystem. So it felt right to include these initially. And we actually worked with each one of the teams or creators or community of those tokens to really amplify the launch. But we started with those because it felt right to kind of pay homage to the Farcaster ecosystem and the coins that have made it what it is today. And then any coins kind of after that, we're very manually adding them. We essentially either reach out to creators like yourself or they reach out to us, and we do a pretty thorough just vetting job of what is this coin, who's behind it, is it an active coin that someone's working on, is it a meme coin, is it an app coin, and kind of use our best judgment and a set of criteria to decide whether or not we should add a coin. Because I think we came to the conclusion that if we let any coin launched ever into the machine, it would eventually, people would stop using it because they're getting coins that they don't want or they don't care about, or they might even just see as like spam tokens, and that kind of ruins the experience. And in terms of like the amount given out, this was definitely, we've gotten a lot of feedback on this point throughout the entire life cycle of it, and even before. But the biggest piece of feedback was if someone would go in and play 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row, and win 0 times, just have no wins at all. We found that majority, or more than half of the users that lost 3 days, 4 days in a row would end up not coming back because they get bored of it. They get sick of it. They're like, I can't win this thing. Like, I'm over it. I don't want to spin anymore. And so that was a really big insight for us. Like, it wasn't so much that they had the opportunity. When we first launched, the prizes were a lot larger. So it was more like $1 versus now it's like 5 to 10 cents. But we found out that just people would lose interest. And so having any sort of win every day, or at least every other day, was a huge thing in retaining people. And we found that the amount, it matters for sure. The more money you have to give out and the larger the prize is, obviously people are going to want to come back more. But we found out that the dopamine hit of like, oh my God, I just won, and like flashing lights, and you're at it on the leaderboard, and like you get something sent to your wallet immediately. Like that little hit of dopamine and satisfaction was all it really takes to get people to keep coming back. And we believed that, and still do, if people keep coming back to win coins, then that's more users. More users equals more value for the people that are adding their tokens. The more value you have of tokens, the more users come. And it's this kind of compounding cycle of, let's just try to see if we can get people coming back every single day. And then we can really work hard on scaling the amount of tokens in the machine, which therefore increases the amount you win per spin. But it was around like, we targeted around, we wanted people to win at least one time per day. So I think the percent chance varies between like 20 to 35% chance that you'll win any given spin. And with 5 spins, that equates to, on average, people are winning at least one time a day. I don't think I've seen many people, since we kind of adjusted these probabilities, lose 2 to 3 days in a row. And we've seen some people win 5 times in a row, and that we're starting to see a lot more that like number out of 5 is also very important. So we're kind of building out more experiences and stuff around, oh, I won 3 out of 5 today, that's awesome, or oh, I won 0 out of 5. And the token amount really matters, but it doesn't matter, I think, as much as just the satisfaction of winning. And
Right.
that really informed like how we designed it. We didn't want to do like a boilerplate set of code where it's just like using a UI template and kind of cheap. I don't know like what the word is for it, but just the modern like templates weren't going to work here. So we actually worked for probably 2 or 3 months on designing the entire experience from top to bottom. With like, we spent a lot of time building that spin button, creating the buttons at the bottom to be just the right size, so like your thumb clicks it and it feels nice. All the sounds that we added were really important. And I think a mix of all of these different tiny pieces of the app, that's what makes people keep coming back. Is they it just looks good. It's satisfying. You hear a little wood chop when you click a button on the bottom. You get the spins and the wheel spinning and like a big, nice electric sound when you win, or if you lose, it's like a want want kind of sound. And I think I'm just really glad that we put a lot of time and effort into that stuff when like it seems like, oh, we can give away free coin. Let's build a slot machine that gives away free coins. The design doesn't matter at all because it's free money. So like people are going to come back no matter what. But I think spending that extra time on making the design and the experience as best as it could be really is what got people to come back more so than even winning some amount of money. And then last thing I'll say on the rewards, which we need to do a little bit better at like advertising this, but you actually can win what we have is called a jackpot. There's 2 jackpots every day. We try to make it really easy for people to post, like share when they win the jackpot, because that's what gets other people to see it. It's a slightly different winning screen, but if you win a jackpot, you win 100 times the normal prize, which still is only like a couple bucks, but it's actually starting to get to be a more significant amount of money. And that's like, I think a 1 in 2,000 chance that you win the jackpot. And there's 2 of those a day. So we have really tried to vary. Let's give people bigger wins because one person winning a lot is great, but also we want many people to win a little bit at the same time.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Really interesting answer. And I wonder if you guys could, to basically amplify the jackpot winner each day, like whether or not they share it, you guys could potentially share it and like tag them or, whatever. And just like, I feel like if I saw from you guys every day, so-and-so, and it might be someone I recognize, more likely just based on the number of people playing, it's probably not. But, some Farcaster user won, X amount of Y currency every day. And in addition to like sort of the volume of people winning and all of that, it's just sort of like an interesting thing to see every day. It's like sort of like a barbell approach, I guess, of like, a bunch of people winning small amounts and then one person winning, or, a few people winning large amounts every day is pretty cool. But yeah, I hear like from you, like sort of like a lot of conviction basically in, that people are coming back day after day for the overall winning experience, independent of these, specific amount. And I think that's just a really interesting sort of insight, like whether it's $1 or 10 cents, the experience itself is worth probably more than either of those amounts, or maybe significantly more than either of those amounts. And in order to sort of make something like this viable, the Wordle approach of like a spin a day doesn't really work, because like in a sense, like with Wordle, you're basically, you are winning every day. I think at least most people, like maybe not every day, but most people, like you can sort of, it's just a matter of like how quickly you're going to win. But like eventually you'll sort of like get the word, or at least it's a very high win rate, similar to how many times you would expect to win at least 1 out of 5 spins. And so like that sort of justifies the spin count in a lot of ways, so that you can have, like, I don't think you want someone winning the slots like every time necessarily, but if you have them winning, X out of 5 times every day, then it's still like sort of a game of chance that you feel like you're gonna, it's not like an automatic win or something, so it adds the excitement and the sort of scarcity of it, but at the same time you're having at least like a dopamine hit per day, sometimes 2, sometimes even up to 5. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I was curious if a lot of people, like, I sort of go back and forth on this, how much time to spend on, in this case, almost literally the bells and whistles, of like sort of the sounds of the machine and clicking various buttons and all the things that you mentioned that you're glad that you spent the time on 2 or 3 months, it sounded like. And like, I sort of go back and forth between, spend the time to do it right, and, or at least the best that you can think to do it, versus, get the classic sort of like ship fast, get something out there and iterate from there. Have you had experiences in the past, or like, do you have any sense of what it might have been that led you toward spending that time here, to get that stuff right, versus shipping an initial version and and iterating it from the start?
Yeah, good question. When we launched Warp Shop, the shopping frame, we it started because so with this other NFT project that I had, like I said, we did a lot of fashion stuff with it. I wanted to sell t-shirts through a frame, and so I set up a frame. I actually worked with Young Weekend early on this. We built a frame for my t-shirts and his art prints to sell through Coinbase Commerce, and built those in like 2 days and launched our own frames, and it got really good feedback. It was partially because of the hype of frames early on, but we sold like 5 to 10 times more shirts than if I had just posted on Twitter or Instagram. And so that kind of was like, oh wow, like people actually want to shop through frames, even if it is the hype initially. But we built that in 2 days, launched it, and then had a couple people reach out to us and say, hey, can you help me do this? And then, so I think in literally 24 hours or maybe over a weekend, we built out a way to let anybody build their own frame, kind of using the same infrastructure. So we built that in a day. We came up with the name Warp Shop in 20 minutes and just like yeeted it out there, put it out. The app wasn't even an app at first. It was literally a Google form basically that someone would fill out, and then we would spit back out the frame URL for them. So it was really, really like quick and dirty. And we got a lot of really great excitement around it. Dan Romero was shouting us out. Brian Armstrong shouted us out for using Coinbase Commerce. Had a lot of people reaching out to us. It was really awesome. Like, it was a ton of great feedback. And I don't think it would have been that great if we didn't launch it as fast as we did, because we capitalized on this hype of this new tech. But the hype fades after a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It slowed down a lot, and it was really time for us to dive deep and actually really start building it. And we didn't have a lot of the core infrastructure pieces to the app that we wanted to when we launched. So it was very manual. There wasn't the Shopify connection right away. You had to use an API key from Coinbase Commerce. It was kind of clunky. And while it worked to our advantage to do the quick and dirty shipping, we didn't have the best plan of follow-up. So we didn't have a great roadmap for, okay, this is what we want to do after we launch for the next 2-3 weeks. It was just kind of, let's launch this and see what happens. And the hype was great. So oh shit, we got to really start. Let's grind on this and keep building it. But over that next month, it lost a lot of its excitement. And I think if we were better prepared, even just a week or a couple of days, to where we had new features to follow it up with, partners to launch stores with, all these sort of bells and whistles, I think it would have continued to steamroll for a little bit longer. I don't know how much longer, but I think it would have continued to steamroll and been something that people really, really used. So then when Warp Slot came around, we took both of these approaches into account. We wanted to get it out as soon as possible with the mini apps launching, but we also realized that we wanted to make it a really good app that from the get, it had at least all the base features that we wanted. We can add more features, like we added streaks last week, different leaderboard views, that kind of stuff. Those are all great. You don't need those during launch, but you need the core functionality, the core pieces, and a really good design on launch. And then that capitalizes on the hype, but we made sure to really have a great follow-up plan, at least some semblance of a plan to what are we going to do next. And so I think it's a good mix of both, or it has to be a mix of both, because I personally wanted to spend a whole nother week on it, adding more features, adding more stuff. My partner was like, no, let's just send it. Let's get it out there. We've been building this for a couple months now. It looks great. Let's do it. And I'm really happy that we launched it when we did. So I think it was kind of in the middle between those two.
Yeah, I mean, it's it definitely is sort of that feels like sort of a healthy compromise, where you've got on the one extreme your experience with Warp Shop, a couple days, sort of it makes sense why you did everything you did there. You launched something for yourself. People liked it, wanted to do something with it. You're going to want to enable that and do so quickly. So you did, but then you're sort of trapped in this situation where you've got a product out there that's really cool in a lot of ways, but quite far from like sort of what you would want it to be.
Yeah.
And in the time that you get from A to B, people lose interest just because that's the way that things work, especially in crypto.
We had copycats. Like there was a lot of like with Warp Shop, there was a lot of copycats that dropped 2 weeks later as well, and they released with a bit more features than us. Just because I think they saw it and they're like, oh shit, we should build this too, because they were building adjacent to it, and that was another big factor of that too.
Right. And then so that's sort of the one extreme. The other side of that, you've got, building for a year before putting something out there. And that also comes with obviously its set of, potential, things, it can basically just outright fail. And then it's like, well, it doesn't really matter that you spent all this time and effort on these details because no one even wants the core thing or whatever. And you sometimes just can't know that until you launch it. So it feels like 2 months or so was a happy medium that, you also, it sounds like, had sort of your co-founder to bounce back and forth with, to sort of yin and yang it a little bit, where maybe you had pushed him to spend more time on the details than maybe he had wanted, but then he pushed you to not spend another extra week or two and just get it out there. And obviously the result has worked really well, not just in the initial launch hype, which you've had before, but the ability to sustain that attention by having, follow-up features planned and things like that. I'm curious, like, is the sort of the follow-up plan that you mentioned, it's sort of like useful to have the next few things that you might want to do in mind at launch, so that you can sort of confirm that you don't want to bake those in pre-launch, but also continue to sort of ship and show that you're working to, it's a dynamic project, not just a one and done sort of shipped and it is what it is sort of thing. I'm curious, like, if some of the things that you might have had in mind at launch got either, some of them got deferred, some of them got pulled up, new things were introduced or reprioritized or whatever, or if actually, regardless of sort of any information that might have come from the launch, the things that you expected to want to do first and foremost post-launch have actually remained the things that you've gone ahead and done first and foremost.
Yeah. I'd say it's a mix of both. Some of the features that we thought we were going to release pretty quickly after, we held back, and others we moved up. Streaks being one of them. It's just a very good, easy feature that we didn't really have planned initially, but as people kept coming back and we started to calculate all these people that had streaks, we just saw people posting about that specific thing. Like, hey, I've played the last 5 days in a row. Even though we weren't giving them that information, they were still kind of jotting it down in their own heads. And then beyond,
you basically productize the organic behavior in a sense.
Yeah. Same thing with like the sharing. I don't think we had sharing right on the first day, but that was the quickest thing we added right after, was a share button for when you win to share and automatically post the frame, because we saw people taking screenshots of them winning and posting it. And it was just a missed opportunity to have people sharing the actual frame to get more to come into it. And then some other, really, like, our idea was, let's launch this within Farcaster and let's just rapidly experiment. Let's try to add all these cool features, functionalities, different mechanisms. Like the jackpot was one that we found to be a good thing to add quickly. But grander things like making it a Telegram mini app or putting it onto World Chain and stuff like that, those we have had in the roadmap and still have in the roadmap, but we didn't do those right away because we just wanted to see if this was something that people were actually going to even come back to. Those are bigger features for sure. Basically forking the app and putting it into another place is a big move that we think will be really fruitful to gain a lot of users, but it was something that was too big to build before launch.
Yeah.
And then I think the biggest feature that we actually built it out. It's like ready to launch at any point within the app. Was purchasing of spins. We had a lot of feedback early on from beta testers. They're like, "Hey, I want to buy another spin. Like, can I buy another spin? Please let me keep going. Like, I don't really care how much it costs. I just want to keep playing. It's fun." And regardless of the feedback that we got of lots of people wanting to purchase spins, we decided to kind of ignore that specific feedback and decided to not launch the purchasing of spins because a couple reasons, but the biggest really being if we let people purchase spins, it kind of makes it into a gambling application. And while there's like legal stuff around that, it's also has a different perception than it is as like a marketing tool. When you're buying spins, you care a lot more about the probability of winning, the amount you're going to win. If I put in $1, I would hope that I could possibly win $2. And that was a lot to really build out, and we have the actual like functionality in our code base, but it's not live to sell spins. But I'm glad that we ended up not doing that because it's really allowed the focus to remain on the machine and the tokens in the machine and like the fun of playing. You can't really pay your way up the leaderboard. If you were able to buy spins, you could buy a ton and climb to the top of the leaderboard and wins or spins or whatever. And while the leaderboard is really just like a fun leaderboard to compete with your friends for the moment, it was still people I think would have been upset if there was others that were able to just buy their way up. And the other big thing that we decided to defer that literally until the night before we were thinking we were going to do it was actually launching a token with the machine. We decided pretty last minute that we weren't going to launch the Warp Slot token because we wanted the focus to be on all the other tokens in the app. We wanted these first 4 tokens that we added and any tokens after to really, really be the focus. And we felt that if we launched a coin with it, yes, we'd make a bit of money on the fees and people would be able to speculate on it and buy in. But the moment the token might go down or not do well, it can kind of sour people's perception of the app. And we really just wanted to keep this Warp Slot as in the highest of graces among everybody, and really have been trying to do all the things that keep it as like this is a really fun, cool thing that they know we're not trying to extract, and we're not trying to launch a token and make a bunch of money and then peace. Like we're trying to build a on-chain marketing tool that stands the test of time rather than sell a bunch of spins, launch a token, make a bunch of money and dip. Like sure, we would have made a bunch of money from a token and selling spins, but that wasn't really the goal. The main goal has been let's get as many users to use this thing every single day without fail. And so those two big features or parts of the machine we decided to defer. And that's not to say that they're never going to happen, but for now we kind of put them on the back burner, and I'm happy we did that.
Yeah, I think it must have been pretty hard to, like, the token thing was pre-launch and you guys were able to sort of make that decision, from like sort of in more of a quiet context on your own sort of logic. The other one with ignoring people's, constant feedback that they want to be able to buy spins, I imagine was like, it would have been a lot, like no one was like sort of pushing you to launch a token necessarily, other than maybe just sort of like defaults of other projects, but like sort of implicitly doing that. But in this case, like users explicitly wanting to pay for more spins, telling you they want to pay for more spins, and not just any users, but like one of the sort of philosophies I, subscribe to in regards to user feedback is that like I would say, well, at least one of these sort of like frames is that, people who love the product most are the ones who I most want to listen to, and people who don't like it or even hate it or don't get it. It's not that like, everyone has the right to like not understand something from day one. It's probably the fault of the creator and all that. But I just don't really like the people who love it when it's the most like sort of bare bones version of what it could be, I think are the most informative for what are the next most sort of like important things to get it there. And yet I think in this case, like those people who are asking to pay, like they're sort of de facto some of the people who are most enjoying your product because they not only are using up their spins every day, but they want more. And not only do they want more, but they're the subset of people who want more, who are actually, they want more enough that they're actually going to message you about it or whatever. So it's like sort of arguably the best of the best. And yet, like I don't know, I'm not as deep in the product as you, but I definitely agree with the deferral and maybe, potentially never adding that feature because it has all these like sort of trade-offs. And it's one of these things that another sort of like frame on feedback is that like feedback, like you should definitely take seriously for a lot of like sort of B2B products where the buyer has like a scope that they're looking for and you need to sort of like satisfy these various features and check the boxes in order for them to be a buyer. But with consumer, it goes back to like sort of more of the Steve Jobs thing of like people don't really know what they want until you show them. Like no one was asking for the iPhone or whatever. And also they, Apple actually does things all the time that people really don't like. They're, famously always taking away the plugs from, less and less things to like just taking stuff away that people are comfortable and never has to be taken away. And then, yet over time, people are fine with it and it's probably a better product in the end or whatever. And so that sounds like a really, I don't know. I applaud the ignoring people's sort of feedback on that one. It just doesn't seem like something that was easy to do, but I think there's just so, like, I mean, you named some of them, but if you allow someone to pay, it becomes more of sort of like a gambling thing. There's like an expected return. It becomes less fun. There's also just the satisfying of the itch to come back the next day because you can just pay for more that day and all the, paying up the leaderboard. There's like, it's a seemingly somewhat innocent ask just to satisfy people's desire to be able to play more on a given day if they want. But when you think through all these trade-offs, it's like, could have been a game ruiner, basically, which would have come from, like, again, the users who love the game most. So it's like, it's always tough. But I know we're coming up on time, but, and maybe we can do a part two sometime. Certainly there's a lot more ground that could be covered. But, generally speaking, obviously, awesome job with the launch. And I think, like I said, I think at the beginning of the conversation, more impressively to me than the hype of the launch has been the persistence of people coming back day after day after day, getting to the million plus spins and thousands of people using their spins every day. It's just a tall task that you guys have sort of seemingly done all the right things so far to make happen. So congrats on all the success, and maybe next time we speak, it'll be 10 million plus on the spin count and tens of thousands of spinners per day.
Yeah, exactly. That's the goal. I'd love to do another one of these, like really honing in on this whole on-chain advertising, on-chain attention stuff. Because I think there's a lot of comparables too with like QR. I mean, we even thought about adding a auction mechanism where like people bid in their own token to add to the machine, and whoever wins has the biggest bid in their token, all those tokens get added. Like we've thought about that kind of too a lot, and that was inspired by your daily auctions. And I just think like any sort of daily action that gets people to go to a site or to an app is super, super powerful. And there's not enough of that yet in crypto. So I'm very excited by Warp Slot, obviously, but also like QR and some of these other attention mechanisms. So I think it'd be super cool to continue talking about that and really dive deep on all that stuff. But yeah, thanks for having me on. This was awesome.
Awesome. Well, yeah, likewise. Look forward to continuing the discussion, and I totally agree. I think there's a lot of experiments to be run in this area, and we're running a couple of them, and hopefully we can continue to run some more, and others will do this.
Yep, exactly. Cool. Thanks, Jake.